It was the day of the Werewolves Hunting Festival. I found my mate 3 months prior. During the festival, the male werewolves presented their captured prey to their mates as a display of their strength and devotion. But my mate, Chris Ashwood, looked at me and said, "There are so many outstanding alphas here. Why don't you just give up on me and choose someone else?" I nodded calmly. "All right." Chris froze when I agreed, without hesitation. He clearly didn't expect such an indifferent response. His hand, which was loading his hunting rifle, came to an abrupt stop. He raised his gaze to look at me, his expression unreadable. "Fiora Wilson, did you hear what I just said?" I met his eyes and nodded sincerely. "I heard you." A bullet slipped through his fingers, falling to the ground with a dull thud. His expression was one of pure confusion. In my previous life, when Chris said those words to me, I burst into tears, sobbing pitifully. I even threatened him, saying, "If you dare betray me, I will have my brother banish you from Darkwood Pack." My brother, Lucian Wilson, was the alpha of Darkwood Pack. Chris was his beta. Under Lucian's pressure, Chris eventually married me. But in this life, his cruel suggestion no longer stirred any emotions in me. Chris stared at me in disbelief, as if he wanted to say something more. "Fiora." Before he could finish, the gunshot signaling the start of the hunt rang out. Warriors from every pack rushed into the forest-covered mountains. An hour later, Chris returned with his catch. "This is for you," he said, tossing the prey at my feet. It was a small rabbit. Blood still dripped from its soft fur, but I felt nothing. He knew I loved rabbits. I even kept one as a pet. Yet, he chose this childish and cruel way to express his dissatisfaction. "Thank you," I said coldly. "Take me home." I didn't bother picking up the prey. Without another word, I turned and walked toward the car. Just then, a scream pierced through the forest. "Kaya was attacked by a black bear," someone shouted. The moment the words were spoken, Chris was already sprinting in the direction of the scream. Kaya Volmont was Chris' ex-girlfriend. They were together for 3 years. She was in Omega with soft golden hair and a delicate slender neck like a real-life porcelain doll. She was the kind of woman who effortlessly awakened a man's protective instincts. Not long after, Chris walked over, carrying Kaya in his arms. She clung tightly to his neck, letting out soft whimpers of pain. If it weren't for the fresh blood staining her thigh, just hearing the sounds, one might have mistaken the scene for something far more intimate. Chris, on the other hand, was filled with worry and distress. "I'll drive Kaya home. You can ride back with Lucian," Chris said to me. Before I could respond, Lucian appeared behind me. "I'll take Kaya home," he said firmly. "You take Fiora." "Kaya's thigh is injured. It wouldn't be appropriate for someone else to care for her," Chris argued. "And you think it's appropriate for you?" Lucian shot back, his voice laced with anger. "Don't forget your place." I gently tugged on Lucian's sleeve and said, "Let Chris take her home. A scar on a girl's thigh wouldn't be a good look." I stepped aside, silently giving them permission to leave as whispers from the crowd drifted into my ears. I heard Kaya is Chris' real girlfriend. They've been together for years. But no matter what they were before, Fiora is his mate now. How could he be so close to another woman in front of her? "Fiora is so pitiful," someone remarked. "I think Kaya is even more pitiful." Lucian leaned in and murmured, "Aren't you afraid they'll get back together? It's late at night, and they'll be alone in a room together." His voice was low, but Chris still caught it. "There's nothing inappropriate going on between Kaya and me."
Chris snapped, though.
A flicker of guilt flashed in his eyes. "Fiora, I've already let go. I won't take your mate from you," Kaya whispered, tears welling up in her eyes as she slowly unwrapped her arms from Chris' neck, attempting to stand on her own. But she barely managed to stand before her legs buckled, and she fell hard to the ground with a pained cry. "Kaya." Chris quickly scooped her up again, holding her protectively. "As long as I'm here, no one will dare hurt you." Then, as if her injuries were somehow my fault, he shot me a sharp glare, his eyes burning with accusation. I merely smiled and shook my head. I saw this act far too many times in my past life. "Kaya, I don't blame you," I said lightly before turning to Chris. "Beta Chris, you should take her home before her wound gets infected." Chris' expression darkened. He seemed confused by my indifference and displeased by my choice of words. I never called him Beta Chris before. His brows furrowed, and he instinctively tightened his arms around Kaya. Just before leaving, he turned back and said, You've had a long day too.
Get some rest.
Watching their figures disappear into the distance, I didn't expect it to still feel like a knife twisting in my heart. In my past life, I got what I wanted. I married Chris. But I never found happiness. Before the wedding, I asked him to go with me, to pick out a wedding dress. I'm busy with work.
Can you stop bothering me? He said.
So, I carried the dress home by myself only to see him in a restaurant, celebrating Kaya's birthday. Kaya is an orphan. She has no family to celebrate with her. Unlike you, you've been pampered since childhood, he explained. Another time, I had a severe allergic reaction to pollen. I asked him to come with me to the hospital. I'm not a doctor. If you're sick, go to the hospital yourself.
So I did.
Alone. And that was when I saw him at a clinic, sitting beside Kaya and waiting for her to get treated for a minor cold. Kaya is an Omega. She's not like you have alpha blood with strong self-healing abilities, he reasoned. Later, I risked my life entering human territory just to find the perfect anniversary gift for him. On my way back, a human bounty hunter shot me. As I bled profusely, I called Chris for help. What is it this time? He asked, his tone laced with impatience. I've been shot. He simply said, you have alpha blood. Just sleep it off. Then, I heard Kaya's voice in the background. The stars over the desert are so beautiful. I've never seen such breathtaking stars in my life. And then he hung up. Blood poured from my wound. I had no strength left to move. Bounty hunters often coated their bullets with wolfsbane poison. If I didn't identify the toxin in time and find the antidote, even my powerful alpha blood wouldn't be able to heal
me.
Memories of my miserable death in my past life flooded my mind, suffocating me. I clutched my chest and let out a bitter laugh. Chris, if my love was nothing but a burden to you, then from now on I will never love you again, I thought. On the way home from the hunting grounds, Lucian glanced at me, his voice laced with concern as he said, Fiora, if you're upset, I can go drag that bastard, Chris, back right now. I'm fine. I leaned against Lucian's shoulder. In my past life, I was so obsessed with Chris' love that I neglected the people who truly cared about me. The next morning a message popped up the second I picked up my phone. Kaya sent me a photo. It showed Chris applying medicine to her wound. She was wearing nothing but a sheer, translucent pair of underwear while Chris knelt between her legs, carefully dabbing medicine onto the inside of her thigh with a cotton swab. The pose was incredibly suggestive. Beneath the photo, there was a message. She wrote, Fiora, I'm so sorry. My injury was too severe, so Chris insisted on staying over to take care of me last night. Disgust churned in my stomach. I had no intention of responding, but she wasn't done. A few minutes later, I received another photo. This time, it was of Chris feeding her breakfast. Chris made me breakfast. He's actually a really good cook. Chris cooked? That was new. In all the time we were together, he never once set foot in the kitchen. And yet, in my past life, I went out of my way to take cooking classes just to please him. As the alpha sister, I grew up in a household with maids I never needed to cook before. But I still remember the first time I tried to make him steak. I burned my hand when the oil splattered on my skin. He took a single bite, then set his fork down. It's overcooked. Looking back now, I can't believe how pathetic I was. Just as I was about to put my phone down, another message popped up, this time from Chris. Fiora, your steak actually wasn't bad. Can you make me another one? Just have the driver bring it over to my house. I raised a brow. Wasn't he the one who said my steak was awful? Still, I typed out a short reply. Sure. Then I instructed the chef, make a steak. Add extra salt. Overcook it. Not long after, another message from Kaya popped up on my phone. It was a picture of the steak I sent to Chris. Chris made me this steak. It's so juicy. I let out a mocking laugh. So that's why he wanted me to cook it, was for Kaya. I hope she enjoyed every bite of that overly salty, rock-hard steak. Just picturing Kaya forcing herself to chew through that tough steak, pretending it was delicious to please Chris, made me laugh out loud. What's so funny? Lucian walked over, eyeing me curiously. Looks like I was worried for nothing. I thought you'd still be upset over last night. I lifted my chin. I'm the sister of Darkwood Pax Alpha. Why would I waste my time feeling sad over a man? Lucian grinned and ruffled my hair. That's my sister. Dress up nicely tonight, I'm taking you to a banquet. That evening, I arrived at the banquet in full glamour. As Lucian escorted me into the banquet hall, I could feel countless envious gazes falling upon us. Not long after Chris arrived, and trailing behind him was Kaya. He walked up to us and addressed Lucian. Apologies, Alpha Lucian. I'm late. As Lucian's beta, Chris was expected to be by his side at all formal gatherings. You shouldn't be apologizing to me, Lucian said coldly. You should be apologizing to Fiora. Before Chris could say a word, Kaya stepped forward with a pitiful expression. Fiora, I'm so sorry. It was all because of me. Please don't blame Chris. There it was again, that helpless little damsel act. I glanced down at her leg and sneered. Oh, you're walking just fine now. Guess your injury wasn't that bad after all. Kaya gave a sweet smile. That's all thanks to Chris. He took such good care of me. Lucian turned to her, his expression darkening. I don't recall inviting you to this banquet, Kaya. Kaya was shaken up from last night, Chris interjected. I thought bringing her here might help. Lucian's anger flared. He leaned in toward Chris and warned, Chris, you are my sister's mate. It's fine. I cut Lucian off, then turned to Kaya with a gentle smile. Why don't you sit with us? My unexpected generosity left everyone stunned. Halfway through the banquet, a group of alphas approached Lucian to chat. This beautiful lady here, who is she? A young, handsome alpha gestured toward me. My sister, Fiora, Lucian replied. The alpha extended his hand toward me with a charming smile. Drake Bennett. Fiora, may I have the honor of a dance? Of course. I stood up and placed my hand in his. Just as we were about to step onto the dance floor, Chris called out from behind me, Fiora. I ignored him and continued walking with Drake. Who was that man calling your name just now? Your mate? Drake asked as he wrapped an arm around my waist. I smiled faintly. He's just my brother's beta. For the next few days, I didn't reach out to Chris, and he didn't contact me either. Instead, it was Kaya who took the initiative to invite me out for coffee. I wasn't interested in meeting her, but she actually showed up at my house. Just say what you came here for, I said flatly. Kaya fidgeted, looking hesitant. Fiora, I've been an orphan since I was a child. Chris is the only family and friend I have. You have noble blood, an alpha brother, and a wealthy life dash. I had no patience for her nonsense and cut her off. Get to the point. She hesitated for a moment, then finally blurted out, can you reject Chris and let me have him? Hearing Kaya's shameless request, I felt both angry and amused. It was only now that I realized some women could use weakness as a weapon. If this were my past life, I would angrily throw her out and loudly declare, Chris is my mate, and I won't let anyone take him from me. But this time, I understood there was no point in taking what wasn't mine to begin with. I wouldn't go after what didn't belong to me, but that didn't mean I was going to give in to Kaya so easily. If only she didn't send me those disgusting photos, I might be more inclined to agree to her request. But she wasn't as innocent as I originally thought, and because of that I wouldn't forgive her wickedness. Kaya, do you know how painful it is to reject your mate? I know. If you help me, I'll be grateful to you for the rest of my life. Kaya gripped my hand tightly. I can help you, but I have one condition. What condition? Kaya immediately let go of my hand, her eyes flickering with panic. Next week is Werewolf Valentine's Day. If you publicly confess to Chris, and he chooses you in front of everyone, I will step aside and reject him. But Kaya hesitated upon hearing my words. Don't you believe in his love for you? I urged her further. All right, I'll do it. With a grateful smile, Kaya left. I watched her retreating figure and shook my head. She overestimated Chris' courage. Though he loved her, what he loved more was his own status. That was why, in my past life, he didn't dare to resist Lucian and me and ended up marrying me even though he didn't love me. Finally, Valentine's Day arrived. This year's Valentine's Day party was hosted jointly by several packs. The location was a stretch of white sand beach. Many couples held their weddings there, for the white sand symbolized pure love. In my past life, Chris and I had our wedding here as well. But today, I was here to witness Kaya's confession. I scanned the crowd, but I didn't see Kaya anywhere. Chris, who was with me, was also searching for her. Was Kaya giving up? Just as I was starting to doubt her, Kaya appeared on the outdoor stage of the party. She was clearly dressed to impress, and her entrance caused a stir among the men in the crowd. Who is that woman on stage? She's stunning. Hearing the praise for Kaya, Chris couldn't help but beam, a satisfied smirk curling at the corners of his lips. Kaya then began singing a sweet love song. I had to admit, her voice was enchanting. Standing next to me, Chris watched her with a look of admiration and infatuation. Meanwhile, Kaya's gaze never wavered from Chris, filled with longing. When the song ended, she didn't step off the stage. Instead, she continued, "The song is dedicated to the one I love most." At that moment, the large screen behind her flickered to life. The screen began showing a rolling display of photos, proof of the love Kaya and Chris once shared. There were sweet couple photos, handwritten love letters, and carefully chosen gifts. "Chris, I love you," Kaya declared loudly from the stage. To be honest, at that moment, I couldn't help but admire Kaya's courage. But when I turned to look at Chris, I saw no surprise in his eyes. Instead, there was a trace of fear. Many wolves from other packs didn't know who Kaya was or that Chris was my mate. When they saw such a bold confession, whistles erupted in the crowd, followed by applause. I couldn't resist joining in, clapping and chanting, "Kiss her. Marry her." Chris turned to look at me, his face a picture of shock. "Fiora, have you lost your mind? I'm your mate." Then, two wolves standing next to me curiously eyed Chris. "Isn't that woman on stage your mate?" "There's a misunderstanding here," Chris quickly explained. He grabbed my hand, attempting to pull me away. But suddenly, a spotlight from the stage hit Chris, forcing him to release my hand. Everyone was waiting for Chris to go up on stage and kiss Kaya. He awkwardly smiled before walking toward the stage. I never expected him to go this far for her. Did I underestimate his courage, or was it their love I misjudged? "Kiss her. Kiss her." The crowd's cheers grew louder and louder. However, what Chris did next completely took me by surprise. He didn't kiss Kaya. Instead, he grabbed her and roughly pulled her off the stage. When they passed by me, he paused. "Wait here for me. I'll come find you soon," he said before turning away and leaving with Kaya. Of course, I wasn't going to wait here for him. Barefoot, I walked toward the beach, wanting to feel the breeze. For some reason, the soft sand beneath my feet felt both cold and painful. "Fiora," Lucian said as he caught up with me. "That bastard dared to treat you like that. Don't worry, I'll have both of them kicked out of the pack." "It's not necessary." "I asked Kaya to confess to Chris at tonight's party," I said flatly. "What?" "I'm going to sever my mate bond with Chris." Lucian placed his hand on my forehead. "Are you sick? What nonsense are you talking about? Chris is your mate, and you two are destined to be together. Don't you love him?" "I used to love him." I smiled at Lucian, not wanting his to see the sadness in my eyes. "But I love you more, my brother. My poor, silly sister." "I love you too, Fiora," Lucian said, pulling me into his arms and gently stroking my head. "Don't worry, I'll help you find a man 100 times better than Chris." I nodded and went home with Lucian. As soon as I finished showering and entered my bedroom, I noticed a shadow by the window. "Who's there?" I braced myself, ready to shift. "It's me." Chris crawled through the window, his expression serious. "I don't want to disturb, Lucian. I need to talk to you alone." "We have nothing to talk about." "I need to rest," I replied. Chris stared at me, his gaze intense. "What's gotten into you today? It's bad enough that Kaya is acting up, but now you're playing along with her?" "Playing along? I think Kaya truly loves you. I'm just helping you too. Isn't that okay?" I retorted. Chris' face darkened. "You were never like this before. What happened to you all of a sudden?" "What was I like before?" I asked, my voice cold. At my question, Chris' expression softened, and he said smugly, "You used to get so jealous, possessive even. You didn't just make me break up with Kaya, but you wouldn't let me get close to any other woman either." "Oh, and did you manage to do that?" "No, not once," I thought to myself. Chris paused when he heard my question, then his attitude shifted, softening. He said gently, "You're jealous, aren't you? The truth is, I didn't want to go up on stage earlier. After I brought Kaya down, I warned her not to do something like that again." He continued, "And I didn't take her home. Once I warned her, I immediately came to find you. I searched for you everywhere, but found you were already gone." How convincing. If I didn't already know what he was really like from my past life, I might have forgiven him right then. Seeing that I didn't respond, he cupped my face in his hands and said, "Please don't be mad at me, okay?" I quickly shrugged his hands off, as if they were contaminated. "I'm not angry. I truly think you and Kaya are a better match. Let's sever our mate bond." "What did you say?" Chris looked at me in disbelief. Before I could explain further, there was a knock at the door. Even before I opened it, I could already smell Lucian's scent. "Chris, what are you doing here in Fiora's room at this hour?" Haven't you heard her enough today with what happened between you and Kaya? Lucian's voice was cold, a clear sign that he came to protect me after sensing Chris's presence. I gave Lucian a grateful look. If I had called him instead of Chris in my past life, maybe I wouldn't have died. Now, everything was still salvageable. What nonsense are you spouting now? Chris took a step forward, grabbing my hand. He was holding my wrist painfully tight, but I still smiled and asked, "Did I say something wrong? You've always liked Kaya, haven't you?" I stared into his eyes and saw the conflict flash. Within them, a cold laugh escaped me. Breaking the mate bond would be better for all of us. You are my mate. How can you just say something like that? Anger flashed in Chris' eyes as he tightened his grip. The pain made me let out a soft gasp. Let go. Lucian shoved Chris away, his voice sharp. When you and Kaya were showing off your affection during the Valentine's Day party just now, did you even think about Fiora being your mate? If it weren't for Fiora pleading on your behalf, I would have already kicked both you and Kaya out of the pack. I didn't know anything about today, Chris tried to explain, but before he could finish, Lucian pushed him out the window. Soon after, I received a message from Chris. Fiora, I'm sorry for what happened tonight. We can talk tomorrow, okay? I snorted coldly. In my past life, he never once apologized. Of course, this time, I didn't believe he was genuinely sorry either. He was just afraid of losing his future. That night, I slept soundly. I didn't even understand why, in my past life, I couldn't even do something as simple as eating and sleeping properly. The next morning, while I was still lying in bed, I heard the sounds of a commotion downstairs. Ms. Valmont, you can't go in. You can't disturb Ms. Wilson's rest. No, I want to see her. The sound of heels stomping on the floor echoed. It was Kaya. I took my time getting dressed. After freshening up, I made my way downstairs. When Kaya saw me, she rushed over visibly agitated. Fiora, how can you go back on your word? I yawned and ignored her, instead turning to a maid. Please prepare breakfast. Then I turned back to Kaya. Have you had breakfast?
Yet?
Would you like to join me? I am not in the mood to eat breakfast. She followed me, continuing her rant. You promised that if I confessed to Chris in public and he accepted me, you'd sever your mate. Bond with him. How can you go back on your word? Calm down. When did I go back on my word? I already told him last night that I'd sever the mate bond, I said. But why didn't he answer my call last night? Kaya looked at me with suspicion. I shrugged. That's between you two. It has nothing to do with me.
I stopped liking him,
long time ago. Really? You really don't like him anymore? A look of surprise crossed Kaya's face. Yes, I don't like him anymore. My love for him died along with my body in my past life. So, when are you going to sever the mate bond? Kaya asked eagerly. Kaya's question made me fall into deep thought. From Chris' attitude last night, it seemed like he didn't want to sever the mate bond with me. I couldn't be sure yet. Seeing that I didn't respond right away, Kaya seemed to realize she was being too hasty.
She
quickly added, I'm not pressuring you. Severing the mate bond is a big decision.
It
requires careful thought. I smiled and nodded in acknowledgement. The maid brought over my breakfast after a
while.
I won't keep you from enjoying your breakfast any longer, Kaya said, sensing the right moment to leave. As she reached the door, she suddenly turned back and said, Fiora, you have a great personality, and you're exceptional and smart. If it weren't for Chris, I think we could have been really good friends. Watching her leave, I felt a sudden sense of
pity.
Maybe it was because I thought of the woman I was in my past life, the one who blindly threw herself into love. Blind love made women foolish and insecure. By the time I finished breakfast and returned to my room, I noticed I had over a dozen missed calls, most of them from Chris. I didn't bother to call back, deliberately ignoring them.
Just as I was about to put my phone down and
head to the library, I received an Instagram follow request. Hi, gorgeous. Do you remember me?
I'm
Drake, the one who danced with you. I opened the message and saw his profile
picture.
He had brown curly hair and bright green eyes. He looked youthful and energetic, more like a sports star than a serious alpha. I accepted his follow request. He quickly messaged me again. Thanks for dancing with me last time. How about we go skiing together? I thought for a moment and replied, sure. Drake wasn't unpleasant. Before I closed Instagram, I deleted my posts about Chris. I remembered that, in my past life, most of the posts I shared on Instagram were about Chris. Even though he never liked or commented on any of them, I still eagerly documented every little moment we spent together. After deleting those posts, I felt much lighter, as if a weight was lifted. I refocused my attention on preparing for medical school. In my previous life, after marriage, I gave up the opportunity to attend Werewolf Medical Academy in order to take better care of my family, despite others' objections. I gave up everything to follow love, only to find my life forever frozen at the age of 21. If not for Chris, I would have graduated at 21 and become a doctor within the pack. This time, I absolutely wouldn't miss out on this academic opportunity. Fearing I'd be distracted while studying, I turned my phone off completely. By the time I was done, it was already 9 p.m. It was time to sleep. I still hadn't turned my phone back on, so I washed up and went to bed. The next day, after getting ready, I opened the door, about to head out to the library, only to find Chris waiting outside. His hair was slightly messy, and the exhaustion in his eyes was evident. It looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Beta Chris, are you looking for my brother? Why didn't you answer my calls?" We spoke in unison. Hearing the frustration and anger in his tone, I composed myself and smiled lightly. My phone was off, so I didn't notice. "What do you need from me?" "Oh, right. I just remembered we still haven't set a date to sever our mate bond." "Fiora, how long are you going to keep being angry with me?" I sighed. Whether in this life or the last, Chris never really understood what I was saying. "I'm not angry. I've thought about this seriously. Let's sever the mate bond." To make him agree more quickly, I reassured him, "Even after we sever the mate bond, you'll still be Lucian's beta. He won't banish you from Darkwood Pack." "You think I don't want to sever the mate bond just because I'm afraid of Lucian?" Chris' voice carried a trace of wounded pride. "Isn't that it?" I retorted. "Or is it because you've really fallen for me? Didn't you tell me to stop bothering you and go find someone else?" Fiora, are you trying to drive me mad?" Chris' face was filled with anger. "That was just a joke." I was angry at the time. "You're a man, so you should take responsibility for your words." I couldn't help but roll my eyes and added, "We should sever our mate bond as soon as possible." "No, I disagree." Chris stepped forward, grabbing my shoulders tightly. "Our bond was destined by fate. How can you just give up like that?" If he had said something like that in my past life, I would have been moved to tears. But now I only felt disgusted, and I pitied Kaya. Perhaps the moon goddess arranged for Chris to be my mate to help me truly understand my own heart. It was a test A trial. I clearly didn't pass it in my past life. I sighed and tried to continue convincing Chris. "Kaya really loves you. You should cherish what you have with her." I didn't particularly like Kaya, but I didn't want to see another woman suffer the same tragedy as I did in my past life. "We've already broken up. I'll never get back together with her. I only took care of her because I felt sorry for her being an orphan," Chris said, growing more agitated. "If it bothers you, I won't contact her again." As soon as he said that, his phone rang. He immediately rejected the call. A second later, the phone rang again. He rejected it again. But I could clearly see that the name on the screen was Kaya's. When the phone rang for a third time, I urged him, "You should pick it up. Maybe she's in trouble." Chris hesitated for a few seconds, then finally answered. I heard crying and other sounds of chaos through the phone. A look of anxiety crossed Chris' face, mixed with a bit of reassurance. "It's okay, give me a few minutes. I'll come over right away," he said into the phone. After he hung up, his were filled with worry, but he didn't forget to try and deceive me. "Fiora, I've got something important to handle right now. I'll come find you after I'm done. I'm not agreeing to this breakup, so don't bring it up again." Without waiting for my response, he turned and hurriedly left. Watching him walk away, I let out a cold laugh. Just seconds ago, he promised me he wouldn't contact Kaya again, yet one phone call from her was enough to pull him away. How was I so enamored with such a man in my past life? A man who was deceitful, full of lies, and without honor. I picked up my phone and sent Chris a message. "I've set the date to sever our mate bond. It will be during next month's full moon." In my past life, next month's full moon was supposed to be the day Chris and I got married. Since the bond between werewolf mates was strongest during the full moon, I chose this date to show Chris my determination and my resolve. I wasn't sure if Chris was too busy taking care of Kaya to see my message, or if he simply didn't want to sever our mate bond. Either way, I didn't receive a reply from him all day. Not that I needed his consent. If he refused to show up on the next full moon, Lucian could forcibly reject him on my behalf. The next afternoon, just as I was about to head to the library, I received a message from Drake. Here's the ski resort's address. See you at 3 p.m. Got it, I replied briefly. Taking a break to relax didn't seem like a bad idea. I've already prepared your ski outfit, Drake wrote. I was about to ask how he knew my size when I accidentally bumped into someone. I looked up, only to meet Chris' deep, unreadable gaze. Lately, he was showing up at my house unannounced far too often. It seemed I needed to ask Lucian to strengthen security. Fiora. Chris called my name with an unmistakable tenderness in his voice. I need to talk to you. I already said everything I needed to in my message yesterday. There's nothing left for us to discuss, I said firmly. You deliberately chose the full moon to sever our mate bond, didn't you? You know that was supposed to be our wedding day. I did it on purpose. So what? I retorted. You're angry, which means you still care about me.
You still love me, he said.
Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. How could this man be so confident in twisting my intentions? Chris, are you seriously this delusional? I've told you I don't love you anymore. His eyes burned red with frustration. You're my mate. How could you possibly not love me? Just then, my phone vibrated with another message from Drake. I'll come pick you up soon. I quickly replied, no need. I'll drive myself to the ski resort. The last thing I wanted was for Drake to run into Chris and start another pointless argument. After sending the message, I turned to Chris and said, make sure you show up on the full moon. Lucian won't forgive you if you don't, and I doubt you want things to get ugly. I have somewhere to be. I'm leaving.
Wait.
Where are you going?
Chris grabbed
my wrist, his eyes bloodshot with desperation. What do I have to do for you to forgive me? Let go of me. Where I go is none of your concern. I was beyond exhausted by his behavior. I'll never let go, Fiora. Just then, a car pulled up in front of my villa. Drake stepped out with his usual sunlit smile, the crisp scent of sea salt clinging to him. Fiora, I'm here to pick you up. He waved from a distance. Chris' gaze darkened instantly. The guy from the party? So, this is why you're in such a hurry to go on a date with another man. He latched onto the idea like a lifeline, his voice dripping with accusation. You've been with him all along, haven't you? You're not rejecting me because of Kaya, you're doing it because of him. Watch your mouth, Chris.
My patience snapped.
Unlike you, I'm not disgusting. You can spend the night with Kaya, but I can't even go skiing with a friend. How is that the same? Kaya is my friend. But this Drake? He's not even from our pack. He knows you have a mate, yet he's still pursuing you. He just wants to get you into bed. At those words, I raised my hand and slapped him. Hard. Chris stared at me in shock, but he still refused to let go of my wrist. You actually hit me for his sake. Drake must have noticed the commotion because he strode toward us without hesitation. As he got closer, his gaze fell on Chris' hand gripping mine, and his brows furrowed. Let go of Fiora, Drake demanded. You have no right to tell me what to do. Fiora is my mate. Chris growled and yanked me into his arms. I struggled against him. Not for much longer. We're severing the mate bond. I told you I won't agree to it, he argued. Drake had enough. He shoved Chris aside and stepped protectively in front of me. Mate or not, no man should treat a woman this way, he said coldly. Chris was completely enraged. What's wrong? Do you have a thing for women I've already slept with? I froze. I never expected him to say something so vile. So all his remorse and apologies were all an act. Just like in my past life, he was nothing but a cruel, selfish man who would do anything to get his way. Regret burned through me. This time, I would make sure Lucian banished him from Darkwood Pack. A man like Chris didn't deserve to be my mate. He didn't even deserve to be Lucian's beta. Before I could recover from my fury, Drake punched Chris, sending him crashing to the ground. Chris shifted instantly, but Drake was an alpha. He was stronger, faster, and far more dangerous. The fight didn't last long. Within minutes, Chris was on the losing end. Drake shifted back to his human form and warned him, "If you ever insult Fiora again, I will rip out your throat." With that, he grabbed my hand and led me to his car. He didn't ask me anything about Chris on the way to the ski resort. Instead, he focused on explaining the basics of skiing, keeping the conversation light and effortless. Sports were the best medicine for pain. By the time we finished skiing, my chest no longer felt so heavy. Drake drove me home. Before I got out of the car, he said, "If Chris gives you trouble again, tell me immediately." That night, I went straight to my study and took out the wedding dress sketches I once designed and old photos of Chris and me. Then I burned them all to ash. Now, there was no longer any trace of my past with Chris. Fearing he might sneak into my house again, I immediately told Lucian to tighten security. "He won't get in through your window ever again, Fiora," Lucian assured me. "And if he dares to show up, I won't just throw him out next time." A month later, I severed the mate bond with Chris. The pain was sharp and searing, but compared to the agony I endured in my past life, it was nothing. Lucian carried me back to the car afterward. Through the window, I saw Kaya rush to Chris' side, reaching out to comfort him. But Chris shoved her to the ground. "This is all your fault, you wretched woman," he snarled. "If not for you, I wouldn't have lost Fiora." Kaya sobbed as she crawled toward him, clinging to his leg. "Chris, you still have me. I'll always stay by your side." But Chris only pushed her away again. I watched, feeling nothing but cold pity for her.
She still didn't understand.
Chris never loved anyone but himself. 6 months later, I stood on the white sand beach, bathed in golden sunlight, dressed in a handcrafted wedding dress. A one-of-a-kind diamond ring sparkled on my finger, but this time, the man standing beside me wasn't Chris.
It was Drake.
The wedding dress and the ring were both designed by him, specially for me. "Are you ready?" Drake asked, holding out his hand. I nodded, slipping my fingers into his. This time, I wouldn't let happiness slip away. This time, I would hold on to it with everything I had.